Hey guys, welcome back. John here. So earlier this week, I made a painting of a dog named Cabo, which we have here. This is a memorial painting for a pup who went over the Rainbow Bridge. I got commissioned this at the last art walk that I did last Friday. And we are making two paintings of Cabo in very different styles. So this is my typical 15-minute pet portrait kind of style. And then I want to do one. She had a very nice background in the reference photo. So we're going to do one that's a little closer to the original photo. So you can see that I've marked that in there. We're going to make this and we'll compare the two, see how they look together. And then I'm going to take these actually later today to go give these to the lady who commissioned them. So we're going to start off with the pen, just like I would in my normal drawings. And we'll get some of my important marks down. And so I'm not going to do everything in pen because that would be, it would make for not as good of a painting because it would feel kind of flat. So I'm not going to line everything, but the dog for sure, Cabo, will get some line work done on him. And then I'll probably do some of the background in lines, but not all of it. Some of the more important stuff will be lined in the background. Okay, there's his face. And so for his body, we are going to do just kind of little soft outlines. Not soft, but not straight, not continuous exactly. Because he is got some curly hair, just like me. And then in the original photo, you cannot see his tail, but it always makes for a better pet portrait if you can see the tail. I don't make the rules, I just follow them. So we're going to put a little flick of the tail here. Just be slightly more dynamic. So there's kind of basically him. We're going to put some of these in there, but I might do that later. I want to get some line work in the background, but not a shit ton. So we'll do that. We'll do the tree line in the background. We'll get this palm tree marked in with pen. And there is a shoreline here. So this is going to be like a bit of a canal or a river of some persuasion. We're going to do this. There is a bit of a path that he's standing on, which connects right to the grass. So I'll get this transition. And then I'm not going to add all of these. Just some of them to give the idea. Because I don't want, if I did all of these lines, it would be too busy. But some of these lines will help to give us an idea of what is going on here. You see, that's not too busy, but you can tell that it's a brick path. So now we can go ahead and start painting. I could have taped this down to give me some nice borders, but don't feel like it. We'll go full bleed for this guy, or we might even, like this original one where I kind of have some rough edges, we might do that. I think it'll make for interesting texture if we kind of have some of the line work sticking out where there's not paint on it. I think that'll be kind of cool. So I'm gonna actually start with my background here. Typically when I do these pet portraits, I do the background later toward the end, but for this one, I think it makes more sense to do the background first. So we're gonna go with a nice blue sky. This is a pretty dark blue. Not very vibrant. But I'm going to come through here and pick a lot of this up. So it's just got a nice bright light blue. I may even come through with a little more tealy of a color and do something like this where I define some of the top of the sky a little more than the bottom, so it looks like we got some clouds going on. It's hard to tell right now that effect, or if that effect is working, but once I put in some of the dark details underneath it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Tree line. Trees are green, obviously, but we don't want to make them too bright green, which would distract from the painting. So I'm going to actually go with a lot of brown and some black and some purple, believe it or not, to give me a nice dark green that'll just kind of... It's green if you look for it, but it's not wow green, because it's not what we want. Oh, there's one line I did forget. Am I going to put it in? No, I'm not. What I'm going to do is soak up some of this down here. There's a bit of like a landing area on the other side of this canal. So I'm going to pick up some of my dark green from my trees. And I'm going to add in a brighter green so that it looks like there's some grass there. So grass is facing up. It's going to catch the light harder. So it's going to appear brighter than the stuff in front of it. Yeah, cool. And so to really push that, I can darken some of this up here. You see, that kind of looks like some grass and some trees in the background. All right, so for water, we're going to go with a blue, obviously, but we're not going to go super bright blue. I'm going to dull it down a good bit. Ooh, so sorry. Let's just smack the shit out of you. I've got my camera a lot lower than I normally do. I think it makes for good composition, so we're going to keep it there. So I'm going to do a lighter color first and then add some darker highlights on top of it for my water here. We don't want anything crazy. So here's what I'm going to do. I put in some of these colors. And now, with a kind of damper brush, so this has not got any paint on it, it's just damp. I'm going to let these bleed together. Clean my brush off. So that's going to give me some texture to my water. I'm going to come in and add some highlights to it later as well. I just want to get some of that in. I'm going to add some darkness here underneath these dark trees. Okay. So moving on up, getting a little closer. This palm tree here behind him, palm tree trunks are kind of a grayish color typically. So I've got kind of a warm gray that I'm going to go ahead and put in here. I know that seems pretty dark, but like I did for the water, I put in some of it, and then I will spread that pigment out so that it seems to be lighter in some areas than others. And so we got to make sure we have a consistent light source, and I'm going to go ahead and light everything from this side going this way. So you'll notice the darker side of my tree is back here. I'm going to do some lines like this just for some texture. Oops, hope you didn't hear that too loud. Now for this grass up front, we are going to go a very vibrant green. This is more foreground material, so we don't want to distract too much from him. But because he's a dark color, I gotta make this really bright, and that'll help me to get the good vibes going on. So we're gonna add a lot of this really light green, and then we'll come in and do some detail work with a slightly darker green. Okay, so you see it's a little more yellow on this side than it is on that side. Not a problem, because that's where my light source is coming from. So that's actually cool. But now I'm going to go with a little thicker color. What I mean by that is more paint and less water. So it's almost kind of sticky on my brush. And what that does for me is it'll kind of let me get some fun texture in here. Like that, you see. Just a little something. Not quite dry brush, but almost. And then I'm going to go with a more bluey green to indicate some shadows. So there's going to be a shadow behind this tree. There's going to be a shadow line here where the grass is connecting to our little sidewalk. Cool. So I'm going to do the sidewalk now, and then we'll do him himself. Sidewalk is kind of light brown, similar to our tree. This is something that I don't want to pull much attention to. So I'm going to do a nice soft wash. So that we have kind of a smooth tone. And then I will add some details here, but we're not going to go crazy with the details here. Obviously, we'll be darker underneath Cabo. And we'll have some darkness on the edge here where the grass meets. So I'll let that dry, and we're going to add in some more texture, but not anything crazy. So let's get to work on Cabo then, huh? So if you looked at the last video, you'll know he's got a nice chocolate color. We're going to use our photo reference and this as kind of a guide to what's going on. So he's really warm in the nose and then a nice dark, rich chocolate color everywhere else. So we're going to go with some sienna of some persuasion here. And then we can mix ourselves a nice rich chocolate color. Obviously, this is not going to be the final layer now, but we can start. And then I'm going to paint right over his eyes here because they don't really stand out in this painting because we're further away. I will put some highlights in them, but I don't need to worry too much about crazy eye detail in this painting. And so you'll see I'm just getting a base color down for now. And then we can go in and add some depth to him because this is not the right color yet. And that's okay. Okay, so there's kind of a rough, sorry, I do that all the time. But there's a first kind of pass to his colors. Now we got to refine things a little better. Couple layers, everything's always going to take a couple layers. Some more red in his snout. We don't want to just have it in his snout though. It's one of the easy tricks you can fall into. You're like, oh, his snout's red, let's paint a snout red, but don't go anywhere else. We want some consistency or some cohesivity to our painting. So if I'm going to make one area red, I'm going to put that color in some other areas as well. Even if it's not actually there, it's going to make the whole thing feel more cohesive. Okay, now I'm going to make a nice rich dark chocolatey color. And we will add some of this everywhere. Yeah, this is nice. And you see, I'm not going for 100% coverage. I will let some highlights stand out. I'm kind of basically following fur pattern and texture. So for example, here underneath his head, the fur is short for the rest of his body and curly. So you'll see I'm making little C shapes or circle shapes, semicircle shapes, which are going to help to give me some texture. I'm not paying attention to light source yet. And like I said, I'm going to put some of this color in here so that it's a little more cohesive. And so for shadows, we did this in the other video earlier this week. We added some purple. Seems a little counterintuitive, but what purple does instead of black is black kind of will kill this color, whereas purple will keep it rich while still being nice and dark so that we don't lose kind of the warmth and the vibrancy. I don't know if it's vibrancy or vibrance. Vibrancy is more fun to say, so that's what I'm going with. Some nice dark shadows in here. We may have to let some of this dry before we can do any more work to it. But now is a good point for me to come back into the background and detail a little bit more. So while I've got some of this warm red, I'm going to dry brush it on. So it's actually a good use for this fan brush that I've got. I almost never use a fan brush, so I don't feel like it's entirely necessary. But I do have them, so I'm going to use this fan brush and add some texture to the sidewalk here. I'm going to even do the same thing to my grass. Some of my grass shadows. Nice. So it doesn't do a shit ton, but it does give it a little bit more texture going on. A little bit more depth to some of the shadows in this guy. Kind of a bluer shadow color. Maybe I'll even get some brown in here, because they do have some marks and streaks on them usually, so I can do that. And then I can put some of this brown into this guy back here, and we can come back in with our really bright green now that that background has dried a little. We can brighten this up too. You see how that just makes it look more like grass. Maybe I'll even come in and do some blue touch-ups to my sky. I told you I wanted to put some clouds in here, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll have some nice hard edges where the clouds start. And then, ooh, sorry, I had a scratch in my throat. Almost died, coughing fit. But I have some hard edges to show where my cloud would start or end, depending on what direction you're going from. You see, that kind of just gives me a bit of cloud action up there. I can add some a little bit of darkness to the bottom of these clouds. You see, it's nothing crazy, but it just gives me a little bit more detail in the background. Okay, so I think it is about time to do some of our final detail layering. So once again, I'm going to go back in with some more purple. Just a little more shadow. This is a really warm purple too, which helps to intensify the effect that we're going for. And so once again, like I've talked about, we don't want it just to be in one spot. If we're going to put some purple in, let's put some purple in. So I'm going to add some purple to our shadows everywhere. To make for a more cohesive painting. So here we go with some more detail in these guys. I don't have to outline everything, but I can add some shadows here. And I do want to add some dark shadow underneath Cabo. We'll darken up this shadow here. Might even go a little bluer than that. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Very happy. And so we'll soften that along the edges, coming with some fresh water. Soften some of that up. Cool. It is a really flat looking background. In terms of like the grass and stuff, but that's what it looks like, so we can't really do too much to change that without losing accuracy, which is not ideal, obviously. So let's come in with some of our highlights. So like I said, we can put some highlights in his eyes, a little highlight on his nose. This is where we're really going to get the good life into this painting. So once again, we know where our highlights are coming from because the sun is going this way. So we can focus on that side for highlights. They don't all have to be on that side, but we can focus on that side for the majority of them. There might be a little here. There definitely would be some on that back leg. Maybe some highlights going on the tail. Cool. And I said I wanted to add some darker shadow texture marks to some of the dark sides of his fur, which I will do. You can see, not really any rhyme or reason to this. Mostly scribbles, but it is going to help give us some texture to the fur, which is exactly what we're looking for here. I'm going to add some pupils in here, even though you can't really tell what's going on. For the sake of making him look a little more lively. Okay. So we will pull this back up. Let me go ahead and sign down here. I may have a couple more marks to do, but it's as good a time as any to sign it. We'll pull these two in here. We'll kind of see. Same dog, two very different paintings, but I think both of them are good, and that's what's important. So you can see that not everything has to be the same style. It definitely helps to branch out from time to time and try other styles. This, for example, is not something that I probably would have done at Art Walk, but since this was kind of a after the fact sort of deal, it was fun to try to get to do something a little different than my typical pet portrait. So thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all the standard YouTube stuff. I appreciate you watching. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.